the fundamental nature of reality, I think, why is there anything at all? I think the state of zero information, so nothingness, I think that actually implies everything. So at the fundamental level, we have we have void, we have the void and God. We can use different words. We can say, I don't know, the universal mind, or we don't even necessarily have to subjectify it as much as that. We could just call it everything. We could call it that. We could call it all information, or just, I don't know. In both of these states, the thing about both of these states is they are states of non-duality, of oneness, of no differences, of no distinctions. And the thing is, these things are opposite, the void and God, everything. But the thing about opposites is opposites are actually the same thing. And you might have lost me there. What does that mean? That's just a blunt contradiction right there. Opposites, by the very definition, are not the same thing. They're the opposite of each other. I don't know, but okay. A lot of this goes with some of Alan Watts' ideas. I don't know if I'm sure most of you obviously are familiar with him, but there was something. It was right here. They're like opposite ends of a pole. I don't know. The thing about everything is there's nothing to distinguish unless there's a difference. Okay? So reality does emerge out of these sort of dualities, out of these opposing forces, these opposites. Okay? So we have this state of non-duality, this void, this oneness, which are the same thing because there's nothing to distinguish any of this. So they imply each other. The void implies everything God, and God everything implies the void. And this is the fundamental nature of everything. And this is outside of time, and you can look at it from so many different perspectives. You can look at it from more spiritual perspectives, or you can look at it from more like a computational simulation type perspective. Ones and zeros. I mean, that's a duality. That's what I'm talking about. The distinction, the one, the zero. The most fundamental piece of information is just a distinction. One distinction, just one thing to tell the difference between one state and another state. Just yes, no, and out of that very simple one distinction, that simple, this is a pattern, that's the very essence of a pattern. Reality emerges out of that. Increasing complexity just somehow, I don't know, how many of you know The Game of Life? The Game of Life, Conway, right? But basically, it illustrates the idea of how very simple rules, how increasing complexity can emerge out of very simple rules. So reality, at its very fundamental nature, I think it is just made of these dualities, these opposites, these ones and zeros. But let's bring it back a little bit more into I don't know, philosophical, spiritual side of things. This theme, this idea of like dualities, of polarities. That's the word too. I think that's the word that Alan Watts uses. All is polarity. When you can get to this state, especially if you reach these states of oneness, of non-duality, something very interesting happens when you start to emerge back out of them. You see this process directly, that reality is very much created by the differences. Without the differences, it's just that state. It's just that non-duality state, which is the same state always. So I experience it or you experience it. It's the same thing. There's no distinction. It's the same state. I have to emphasize that enough, okay? Okay. Are you here? Are you here? Hello? Hello? I really don't know any other way to behave besides like an absolute weirdo, because when I try, it takes so much energy to not behave like this. I'm telling you, it takes so much energy, and then it feels like I'm being inefficient. I should just work with my natural state instead of trying to work against it. Yeah. Okay, what were we getting at? We were getting at something. What's an example of some like fundamental opposites that reality emerges out of? You keep saying reality emerges out of these opposites, out of these polarities. What are they? Look at that bird. It's a cardinal. That's so cool. Okay. Let's think back. I think one of the most fundamental one is self and other, or subject and object. I think the universe, that's probably one of the most fundamental splits. The first thing it splits is subject and object. See, this void state, that God consciousness thing, I think it transcends the nature of subject and object. I think it's simultaneously both subject and object. See, now I'm thinking of like, now I want to go to quantum mechanics. Subject, object. Maybe that's for another discussion. I don't have enough fully formed ideas to bring down and connect with what I'm trying to talk about. Maybe you can make the connection for me. Anybody want to make the connection with subject, object? They can't be, okay, I feel like there's a word I'm looking for that I can't find. But there's something interesting about that. See, this goes back to the whole fundamental nature of reality. I mean, and the materialist perspective. From the materialist perspective, the universe is object, or it starts as object. There's no subject to it. And then all of a sudden, magically, one day, subject happens, and there's all of a sudden subjective experience. But like, how does it, I don't know, like I get, it can be very complex. Consciousness is a sort of emergent phenomenon, and, you know, maybe the boundaries are fuzzy of like, I don't know, there's a lot of different ideas to consider at all times. Let's try to go back to this self-other thing. So that's, I think, one of the first, out of the oneness state, one of the first dualities that, one of the first distinctions that comes out of that is self and other. And you start to learn to differentiate self and other, subject and object. So you have the internal and the external. You have the internal experience of the universe and the external experience of it. And that's kind of that first split. That's the first thing. That's the start of the universe. I don't know. What is the start of the universe? Because I think we think about it in the wrong way. Time is a trap. Time is a mental trap in the brain. Because you always go back. Your brain makes you perceive time linearly. But that's not the case. Like just because we have this measurement of time and we can go all the way back, we can even put a number on it. You know, maybe our estimates, maybe they're off, maybe they're not. We can put a number on it, like the Big Bang, okay? Big Bang, what is that? We just observe things and we put together evidence and it leads us to these ideas. But what is time? That's how far back we can see time, to the Big Bang. What is time and space? See, space-time. Is space-time a headset? It's a tool. Space-time is a tool. I do think that's true. I think reality is mental. Space-time is a tool. So, you know your mind. You have a mind. Your mind holds a lot of information. Your mind can imagine things. Your mind... But it's all, like, contained within this, like, physical brain. Or... I don't think it is necessarily, but... Like, let's just imagine it is. Like... There is such a thing as mental space. So there is such a thing as space that doesn't occupy physical space. So mental space is real. There is space in the mind. There's space in it, okay? I think the nature of reality is this sort of mental space. Physical space, physical reality is a special case of mental reality. So the nature is mental, okay? The entire nature of the universe is mental. And it's all about perception. It's all about, like I said, those differences. One thing different than another. Subject, object, self, other. Everything and nothing. And it's beautiful. There's something beautiful about dualities. I think I think I'm losing it, is what I'm thinking, actually. Dang. Sometimes I wish I could get more out, but I have to do videos like this sometimes, even if this, like, is this actually going up? And, like, reality is unfolding as we speak. It really is. I don't know. I hope you guys like this. I don't know what anything is. I don't know. I'm just gonna keep doing this, okay? I'm just gonna keep doing what I feel compelled to do. Hopefully we get at something. Okay, this is nonsense. I have a habit of being a bit nonsensical, so hope you don't mind. You will see me in the next video, okay? Bye-bye.